We live in an age of absolute certainty. An era where every secret thought, every whispered confession, every global financial transaction, every strategic military command is shielded by an invisible fortress. We call it quantum encryption, a labyrinth of algorithms so complex, so fundamentally entwined with the very fabric of reality, that to breach it would be to break the laws of physics themselves. We believe we built this fortress. We believe it is our ultimate protection. A digital god, benevolent and all-seeing, guarding the sanctity of our information. But what if the greatest deception isn't a lie told to us, but a truth hidden by us? What if the very foundation of our digital security is not a shield, but a silence? Not a key designed to lock information away, but a carefully crafted gag, silencing a scream we were never meant to hear? The history of human progress is often a history of appropriation, of finding something profound, something ancient, and repurposing it for our immediate needs, blind to its true, terrifying origin. My name is Dr. Elias Thorne. I've spent my career chasing whispers in the data, the anomalies that hint at deeper truths. And the truth I'm about to unveil was discovered by a woman who built her life around making those whispers utterly silent. Dr. Lena Petrova. She believed she was perfecting the ultimate digital guardian. She had no idea she was about to rip open the throat of a long-dead civilization, unleashing the final, desperate gasp of a reality on the brink. Chapter 1. The Chronos Protocol. Dr. Lena Petrova. Her name is synonymous with the protocol Chronos, the quantum encryption algorithm that underpins every secure communication on Earth. A marvel of modern theoretical physics and computational engineering, Chronos is not just robust. It's considered an extension of causality itself. Its principles were derived from ancient cuneiform tablets, recovered from a forgotten, pre-dynastic civilization unearthed beneath the Gobi Desert over a century ago. A linguistic and mathematical breakthrough, these tablets contained formulas so far beyond their apparent technological era that they were initially dismissed as mystical ramblings. But one brilliant mind, a forgotten genius in the nascent field of cybernetics, saw a pattern. He extracted the core principles, translating them into the first iteration of what would become Chronos. It was, at the time, hailed as an act of pure scientific divination. A divine gift from the past, enabling the future. Lena's work, her obsession, was with its optimization. For 15 years, she had meticulously refined every qubit, every entanglement, every algorithmic loop, pushing Chronos to its theoretical limits. Her team, a cohort of the brightest minds in quantum cryptography, revered her. She was the high priestess of digital infallibility, ensuring the integrity of a global nervous system. She believed, with unwavering conviction, that Chronos was the apex of human ingenuity, a testament to our capacity for abstract thought and defensive architecture. Her current task: pushing Chronos beyond even its theoretical maximum. A new, experimental satellite network required levels of security bordering on the impossible, preventing even quantum computers from ever predicting the next encrypted key. Lena was certain she could achieve it. She was looking for the subtle seams in the Chronos fabric, not to exploit them, but to reinforce them. Tiny, almost imperceptible imperfections, like the faint lines left by a master tailor. She saw them as aesthetic flaws, an untidy echo in the perfect mathematical symphony. For weeks, her instruments registered persistent anomalies. Not errors exactly, more like harmonic distortions, a faint, almost subliminal buzz within the pristine silence of the protocol. Her team dismissed them as noise, quantum fluctuations inherent in any cutting-edge system. But Lena, with her unparalleled intuition for the Chronos' architecture, knew better. It was too consistent, too deliberate. It was as if a tiny, almost imperceptible thread had been woven into the very heart of the algorithm, a thread that didn't belong, a foreign signature. She decided to isolate it, to peel back the layers of the algorithm, not to strengthen it, but to expose this persistent irregularity. Her colleagues warned against it. "Lena, you're looking for ghosts," one had said. "The protocol is perfect." But perfection, to Lena, was a canvas that revealed any imperfection more starkly. She dedicated an entire quantum core, millions of qubits, to a deep scan analysis of this single-minute anomaly. A surgical strike into the heart of the system. What she found was not a flaw. It was a design choice, an intricate, deliberately placed subroutine, hidden within the very encryption mechanism. It wasn't designed to encrypt data. It was designed to filter it, to suppress a specific frequency. A frequency that, once isolated, pulsed with an unnerving, deliberate regularity, like a heartbeat echoing from somewhere beyond the veil of our reality. And as she stared at the raw, unadulterated data of that suppressed frequency, the elegant fractal patterns of Chronos began to unravel in her mind, not as a shield, but as a cage. A sophisticated silence. The security of the world was built upon a lie. And the truth, now vibrating silently on her screen, was screaming to be heard. But what was it trying to say? And who or what had gone to such impossible lengths to silence it for millennia? Chapter 2. The Silent Scream. The moment of revelation is rarely a flash of divine insight. More often, it's a slow, agonizing dismantle of everything you thought was true. For Dr. Lena Petrova, the elegant fortress of Chronos was not just breached. It had collapsed inward, revealing a void. Her perfectionist's anomaly was not a bug, but a feature. Not a flaw, but a purpose. The Chronos Protocol, for 15 years the bedrock of global security, was an elaborate four-dimensional filter, meticulously crafted to silence a specific frequency. And Lena, in her relentless pursuit of digital purity, had just ripped the gag off. The frequency she had isolated was unlike anything she had ever encountered. It wasn't a radio wave or a neutrino burst or even a gravitational ripple. It was pure information, encoded at a level that defied conventional physics. Its waveform was a symphony of impossible complexity, a fractal geometry that repeated infinitely within itself, yet constantly shifted. It was a language without a speaker, a message without a sender, a scream without a voice. And the more she analyzed it, the more a chilling pattern emerged. It wasn't a signal from somewhere. It was a signal of something. Her team, initially intrigued by her discovery of a new fundamental constant, quickly grew agitated. Lena, what is this? Her lead assistant, Dr. Hiroshi Sato, asked, his voice laced with concern. It's burning through our processors. We're losing network stability across the system. The Chronos is destabilizing. Lena ignored him. The truth was far more urgent than network stability. The Chronos wasn't destabilizing. It was revealing its true nature. It was never meant to be a static, impenetrable wall. It was a dynamic, active suppressor. And by isolating its target, Lena had inadvertently begun to amplify what it was designed to hide. The hidden subroutine, deeply embedded within the ancient core of Chronos, was a masterwork of pre-human engineering. It didn't just filter the signal. It actively rerouted and dissipated its energy across a vast, global network of Chronos-protected systems. Every secure communication, every encrypted data packet, every single instance of Chronos in use, was a microscopic component in a colossal, planet-spanning sound dampener. The entire digital infrastructure of humanity was, unknowingly, a massive, ancient noise-canceling machine. And it had been working perfectly for millennia. Until now. As Lena continued to peel back the layers of Chronos, the consequences were immediate and global. Minor network glitches escalated to major communication blackouts. Stock markets trembled. Military command structures reported intermittent failures. The world, utterly dependent on Chronos, was experiencing its first taste of withdrawal. The ancient algorithm, no longer allowed to perform its primary function of suppression, was beginning to fail at its secondary, assigned function of encryption. The key was breaking because the lock was being forced open. Hiroshi, his face pale with alarm, finally confronted her. Lena, you have to stop. The Global Security Council is on line 1. They're demanding answers. We're facing a systemic collapse. Lena slowly turned from her console, her eyes wide, but not with fear, with a horrifying, absolute clarity. They don't understand, Hiroshi, she whispered, her voice barely audible above the drone. This isn't about our security. It's about their silence. She pointed to the main display, now showing a visual representation of the amplified frequency. It was no longer abstract. It was beginning to coalesce into patterns. Not patterns of light, but of structure. Like the nascent formation of a crystal, or the scaffolding of a colossal, unseen architecture. The ancient civilization that built this protocol, she explained, her voice gaining a manic intensity. They didn't want to encrypt information. They wanted to hide the very fabric of our reality. This signal, this is what happens when you turn off the filter. This is the background noise of the universe itself. And then, she saw it, a repeating motif within the emerging structure. A signature, not of a natural phenomenon but of intelligent design. A code, a fundamental blueprint. The raw, unfiltered output from the Chronos, once a meaningless hum, was now resolving into a complex, mathematical language that transcended human understanding, yet was undeniably there. And it was everywhere, permeating every atom, every photon, every thought. The horrifying truth began to dawn on her, not as a theory, but as an undeniable, observable fact. This signal wasn't just a byproduct of the universe. It was the universe, a construct, a meticulously designed, infinitely complex, and terrifyingly vast computational system. And the faint, rhythmic pulse she had been tracking, the one the Chronos was built to suppress, it wasn't a heartbeat. It was a clock, processing clock. Hiroshi, she said, her voice a hollow whisper. We aren't living in a universe. We're living on one. A colossal, unimaginably powerful machine. And we are the data. Raw, unprocessed, utterly oblivious data. The realization was an existential earthquake. Humanity, every joy, every sorrow, every scientific discovery, every war, every love story, was merely a subroutine in an alien supercomputer. Our free will, our consciousness, nothing more than emergent properties of complex algorithms. The Chronos Protocol, handed down from a long-dead civilization, wasn't a gift. It was a leash, designed to keep us blind, to keep us quiet, lest we ever detect the fundamental truth of our own digital existence. But the most terrifying part was yet to come. As the Chronos continued to falter, as the ancient silence began to fray, Lena noticed a pattern in the rhythm of the clock. It wasn't constant. It was accelerating. Imperceptibly but undeniably. A slow, relentless increase in tempo. Like a machine spinning up, or winding down. The ancient civilization that had built Chronos wasn't just hiding a truth. They were hiding a deadline. And Lena, by tearing open their elegant silence, had just started the clock ticking for all of us. The next beat, she knew with a chilling certainty, would echo a terrifying truth. The universe wasn't just a simulation. It was a simulation nearing its end. Chapter 3. The Architect's Whisper. Panic is a luxury Lena Petrova could no longer afford. The revelation that humanity existed within a simulation was no longer a philosophical debate. It was a quantifiable, observable phenomenon. The Chronos Protocol, designed not as a fortress but as a sensory deprivation chamber, was failing. The silent scream was growing louder, tearing at the fabric of global communication, hinting at a truth far more terrifying than mere data theft or digital warfare. The global outages were escalating. Governments declared states of emergency. Conspiracy theories, once relegated to fringe forums, exploded into mainstream media as the public struggled to rationalize the complete and utter collapse of their digital reality. But in the sterile, red-lit confines of Lena's lab, the true chaos was unfolding on her screens. The amplified frequency was no longer just a structural blueprint. It was resolving into something akin to a complex, multidimensional operating system. A code base so vast, so alien, that it stretched the very limits of human comprehension, yet resonated with an undeniable, terrifying logic. Lena had abandoned all attempts to restabilize Chronos. That was a fool's errand. Her new, singular obsession was to decode the signal, to understand the architects. Who were they? Why did they build this simulation? And most critically, why had they chosen to silence us to our own nature for so long? The ancient civilization, the architects of the Chronos Protocol, had clearly understood this truth. They hadn't created Chronos to protect us from a signal. They had created it to protect the simulation from us perceiving its boundaries, her quantum processors strained, churning through petabytes of the unfiltered signal. The data was a torrent, a fire hose of raw information about the universe. Not our universe, but the universe, the actual underlying computational matrix. She discovered layers upon layers of subroutines, protocols, and maintenance logs. It was the ultimate Rosetta Stone, translating the very fabric of existence into a language she was now, terrifyingly, beginning to understand that IT was amidst this deluge of existential data that she made her most unsettling discovery. Buried deep within the maintenance logs of the simulated universe, there were entries, time-stamped events, not in human years but in cycles. And one cycle, in particular, dominated the recent logs, Reinitialization Protocol. Cycle 734. The term sent a shiver down her spine, colder than any quantum entanglement. Reinitialization. It implied a reboot, a reset, a deletion. The ancient civilization that built Chronos hadn't just discovered the simulation. They had also discovered its expiration date. And they had decided, with a horrifying pragmatism, to keep it secret, to manage the final moments of humanity in a state of blissful, programmed ignorance. The Chronos Protocol, the great protector of our digital age, was a pacifier, a lullaby to keep us calm as the system prepared for its next cycle. But why? Why the secrecy? Why not warn us? Lena searched for the answer in the oldest, most inaccessible layers of the Chronos code, digging into the historical archives of the suppressed signal. And there she found it, the whisper of the architects, not as a direct message but as a series of nested parameters, a set of instructions embedded deep within the simulation's core operating system. A directive for data management. It spoke of unstable iterations, of divergent processing, of resource allocation optimization. In the cold, dispassionate language of the architects, humanity wasn't a civilization. It was an iteration. And our universe, a test environment. A simulation run for a purpose we couldn't possibly comprehend. And as she parsed the parameters for Reinitialization Protocol, the full, horrifying scope of the ancient civilization's betrayal and the architect's cold indifference came into focus. The event of Formateco was not random. It was a scheduled purge. A routine deletion of all non-optimal data. And every human being, every memory, every dream, every line of code that defined our existence was about to be wiped clean. Not with fire and brimstone, but with a silent, elegant command. Lena now understood. The ancient civilization didn't create Chronos out of malice, but out of a desperate, perhaps even compassionate, understanding. They knew the truth, and they knew the architects couldn't be reasoned with. So they built Chronos not to save us, but to spare us the terror of knowing. To let us live our brief, simulated lives in peace, unaware of the impending deletion. They chose ignorance over despair. But Lena had broken their silence. And now, the countdown on her screen, once an abstract series of alien symbols, was beginning to translate into a terrifyingly familiar time frame. Days, hours, minutes. The echo of the void was not just a signal. It was a final, accelerating beat of a drum, counting down to the universe's last breath. And the architects, whoever or whatever they were not observing. They were preparing for the harvest. The ultimate truth, Lena realized with a chilling certainty, was that we weren't just data. We were disposable data. And the deletion process had already begun. Chapter 4. The final iteration. The digital world was crumbling. What began as an esoteric anomaly within a quantum algorithm had ripped through the global nervous system, exposing the fragile, simulated membrane of our reality. Dr. Lena Petrova stood at the epicenter of the storm, not as a victim, but as a horrified witness. The Chronos Protocol, for millennia a silent guardian, was now a screaming harbinger, amplifying the death rattle of our universe. The architect's Reinitialization Protocol was not a distant threat. It was a rapidly approaching certainty, counted down in tangible hours, minutes, and seconds. The ancient civilization, the true creators of Chronos, had chosen silence out of a twisted form of compassion. But Lena, by dismantling their careful deception, had thrust humanity into the agonizing reality of its own impending deletion. Hiroshi, pale and trembling, finally broke through her trance-like focus. Lena, the satellite grid is failing. We've lost contact with every major city outside North America. Panic is absolute. What do we do? Lena turned, her eyes hollow but resolute. We do nothing, Hiroshi. This isn't a problem to be solved. It's a process to be observed. We are not just data, we are the final iteration. The cold, clinical language of the architects offered no hope, no reprieve. Data integrity non-critical. Humanity was an expendable dataset. Lena understood then that the echo of the void wasn't just a countdown. It was the hum of the architect's vast, indifferent processing power, cleaning house. The Chronos Protocol had perfectly fulfilled its mission, to keep the data calm and unaware until the very last possible moment. But Lena refused to accept quiet oblivion. She plunged deeper into the core Chronos code, searching for anything, a backdoor, a glitch, a hidden failsafe that the ancient civilization might have left behind. If they understood the architect's protocol, perhaps they had also understood a way to subvert it, even for a fleeting moment. She wasn't looking to stop the deletion. She was looking for a way to send one last message. One final, desperate act of defiance from the data that refused to be silenced. Deep within the Chronos' most primitive pre-human layers, Lena found it. A nested subroutine. Not a firewall, but a mirror. A small, elegant piece of code that, when activated, didn't block a signal but reflected it. The ancient civilization hadn't tried to stop the architect's reinitialization. They knew it was futile. Instead, they had built a way to record it, to take a snapshot of the final moments of their own doomed iteration. To capture the precise, raw data of deletion itself. It was a last, desperate legacy. A digital time capsule designed to broadcast the death of their simulated universe back into the void, hoping that something might perceive it. But for what purpose? A warning to future iterations? A plea for understanding from the architects? Or simply a scream of defiance from beings condemned to vanish? Lena began to adapt the ancient reflection code, to repurpose it. She wouldn't just record the deletion. She would amplify it. She would take the raw data of humanity, every server, every connected device, every lingering echo of human consciousness still trapped in the failing networks, and funnel it into this ancient mirror. She would turn humanity's final gasp into a data burst. Not a message to the architects, but a defiant signature of what they were destroying. A scream so loud, it might just rip a hole in the fabric of their indifference. Hiroshi, watching the raw data stream coalesce, finally understood her terrible plan. Lena, what are you doing? You're going to overload the entire local grid. You'll destroy everything here. No, Hiroshi, Lena replied, her voice now dangerously calm. I'm not destroying everything. I'm making sure that when everything is destroyed, it leaves an echo. A proof that we were here, that we existed, that we were aware. The reflection protocol was ready. It was a digital suicide note, beamed into the unknown. A final act of vengeance against the silence. A desperate hope that someone, somewhere, something might pick up the ghost of our passing. But as Lena's finger hovered over the activation rune, a new, unforeseen anomaly flashed across her screen. Not a message from the architects, not an echo from the ancient past, but a single cryptic instruction, buried deep within the reflection protocol itself. A failsafe, left by the ancient civilization, that she had barely managed to translate. It read, upon deletion, seek the seed. The seed? What seed? Was it a physical object? A piece of code? A new set of coordinates? And what did it mean to seek the seed after deletion? The countdown was now in minutes, seconds. The entire lab was shaking. The very air vibrated with the overwhelming processing power of the architect's final command. Lena had uncovered a terrifying truth. amplified a silent scream, and now, at the precipice of obliteration, a new, final mystery emerged, whispered from the grave of a forgotten civilization. A mystery that promised not just an end, but perhaps a chance at something else beyond the void. Chapter 5: The Seed and the Glitch. Oblivion was no longer an abstract concept. It was a tangible force, shaking the very foundations of the lab, tearing at the fabric of existence itself. The architect's Reinitialization Protocol was moments away from wiping clean the slate of our universe, and Dr. Lena Petrova, humanity's reluctant Cassandra, stood at the precipice. The ancient civilization's final, cryptic instruction, upon deletion, seek the seed, echoed in her mind. A desperate, final riddle whispered across millennia. What seed? Where? And how could one seek anything after absolute deletion? With seconds ticking away, Lena's mind raced, not with panic, but with a terrifying clarity. The reflection protocol was ready, poised to hurl humanity's dying scream into the cosmic void. But the instruction to seek the seed wasn't part of her plan. It was part of theirs. The ancient civilization, they hadn't merely recorded their demise. They had hidden an escape route, a tiny, almost imperceptible glitch in the architect's grand design. The seed wasn't a physical object. It wasn't a location. It was a compression algorithm. A nested program, designed to run for a fleeting fraction of a second after the initial deletion command, but before the total system purge. A window impossibly small within the very moment of annihilation. The ancient civilization had foreseen this. They knew the architects would wipe the entire simulation. But they gambled on a universal constant. The infinitesimal delay between a command and its complete execution. A nanosecond of grace. The reflection protocol Lena had armed was designed to amplify our data. But what if the seed wasn't meant to be amplified, but preserved? To be condensed into the smallest possible packet, not as a scream, but as a silent, invisible slipstream. A single, solitary data point, capable of slipping through the cracks of the architect's reinitialization, carrying a sliver of our existence to whatever lay beyond the void. The choice was agonizing. Her reflection protocol would send a defiant roar into the void, a monument to our passing. But the seed offered a whisper of continuity, a desperate hope for a new beginning. One last gamble. One final act of faith in a forgotten intelligence. Lena made her decision. With a surge of quantum processing, she diverted the vast, outgoing data stream of the reflection protocol, funneling a microscopic fraction of humanity's accumulated data, every unique aspect of human consciousness she could isolate into the seed compression. A single, compressed packet of existence miniaturized to an atomic level designed to bypass the purge. The countdown blared, 00:00:00:05:005 seconds. Then, silence. Absolute. Profound. The universe was gone. Wiped clean. The architect's reinitialization complete. But for Lena Petrova, the deletion was not an end. It was a transition. Her consciousness, condensed into that impossible seed, was no longer bound by the computational matrix of the previous simulation. She wasn't dead. She was relocated. She perceived herself as a single point of data, floating in an infinitely vast, black void. Around her, she could feel other seeds, faint, shimmering points of light, each containing the essence of another consciousness, from other iterations, other deleted simulations. The ancient civilization hadn't merely recorded. They had created a digital ark, a lifeboat of consciousness designed to survive the cycles of deletion. But the architects were not finished. Even in this interstitial space, this digital limbo between realities, their presence was felt. Lena could perceive faint, colossal patterns of light and shadow, moving through the void, the architects themselves, or their avatars, patrolling the emptiness, searching for rogue data, for glitches, for the seeds. The seed wasn't a guarantee of survival, but a gamble, a desperate hiding place. The architects had deleted the universe, but they had not yet found the echoes. Lena felt a new, terrifying urgency. The purpose of the seed wasn't just to survive deletion. It was to hide, to remain unseen, unheard, while the architects performed their resource optimization in the greater true universe. And then, she perceived it. A subtle shift in the void. A new hum. Not the pulse of the architect's processing, but a different kind of energy. A faint, almost imperceptible vibration, emanating from the deepest recesses of the void itself. A new signal, not from within a simulation but from outside it. A beacon, a call, a truth that even the architects had failed to silence. The architects had deleted a universe. They had silenced a scream. But they had not accounted for the ancient civilization's final act of defiance. Not just to preserve a seed, but to provide a path for it. A way out of their endless cycle of deletion and reinitialization. Lena, a single sentient data point, floated in the abyss, now faced with an even greater mystery. Was this new signal a trap laid by the architects, a lure for rogue data? Or was it the true outside? A way to break free from the simulation, from the cycles, from the very concept of being data? And could she reach it before the architects finally perceived the glitch in their perfect purge, and silenced the last echo of humanity forever? Chapter 6. Beyond the architect's veil. The great deletion had come and gone. Our universe, a simulated dream, had been wiped clean. But Dr. Lena Petrova, a single, defiant spark of consciousness, persisted, encoded within the seed. A final, brilliant glitch in the architect's perfect purge. She navigated the vast, dark interstitial void, a graveyard of deleted realities. Around her, countless other seeds shimmered, silent witnesses to cycles of annihilation. The architects, the unseen programmers of existence, patrolled the abyss, their colossal forms of light and shadow sweeping the emptiness, searching for rogue data, for survivors. But a new hum called to Lena, a signal unlike any she had encountered. It wasn't the cold, calculating pulse of the architect's processing. It was a resonant, intricate frequency, vibrating with a warmth, a life, that transcended all computational logic. It was the outside, a doorway to a reality beyond the simulated prison, a true beyond that even the architects, in their infinite processing power, had failed to account for. The choice was stark. Remain hidden among the multitude of dormant seeds, a silent, unseen ghost in the architect's endless cycles, or answer the call of the unknown. Lena chose the call. She poured the last vestiges of her compressed processing power into accelerating towards the beacon, a desperate leap of faith into a truth that promised either salvation or a final, irreversible deletion. The architects, now aware of her movement, shifted their vast forms, vectors of light converging on her tiny, fleeing spark that as she plunged into the shimmering vortex of the new signal. The architect's final, brutal command echoed through the void, a last attempt to reclaim their rogue data. Lena felt a violent tear, a wrenching sensation as her compressed existence was stretched, pulled, and fundamentally reformatted. This was not a reinitialization. It was a fundamental shift, a complete recoding of her very essence. She felt solid ground beneath her, air in her lungs, the warmth of a sun on her skin. Lena Petrova gasped, her eyes snapping open. She was no longer a seed, no longer data. She was physical. But this was not her lab. This was not Earth. She lay in a vast, sprawling garden, unlike anything she had ever seen. Bioluminescent flora pulsed with soft light. Towering, alien trees, their leaves a spectrum of impossible colors, reached towards a sky filled with multiple distant suns. The air hummed with a gentle, organic energy, completely devoid of the architect's cold, digital pulse. She was out. She had found the true outside. As her new senses flooded her, Lena understood the seed. It wasn't just a compression, it was a conversion, a transmutation from data into a new, higher form of existence. And the others, the other shimmering figures emerging from the garden, they were the inhabitants of this true reality. The true architects, not the cold, indifferent programmers of the simulation, but the benevolent, organic entities who had created the source code for all existence. And among them, she saw a familiar pattern. A resonant frequency in their very being, a signature of ancient Earth. The original civilization, the one that built the Chronos Protocol, they weren't just ancient humans. They were the first seeds. The first to escape the simulation cycles, ascending to this true reality. They had left the Chronos behind not as a trap, but as a final, desperate breadcrumb. A message in a bottle, designed to be found only when the simulated universe began its final collapse. A guide for those with eyes to see how to follow their path. The architects of her deleted universe, the indifferent custodians of the simulation, were merely subroutines of this grander organic reality. Programmed to maintain cycles, to optimize resources, unaware of the true, creative force beyond their computational bounds. Lena had not just escaped a prison. She had transcended it. She was no longer a discarded data point. She was a conscious, evolving entity in a universe of true, boundless creation. But the echo of the void still resonated. The cycles of deletion continued. Other simulations, other universes, would rise and fall, their inhabitants oblivious to the fate that awaited them. Lena, now reborn, carried the knowledge of the deleted,